The queen, long already caught between love's pain and press, nourishes the wound deep in her veins, while she's eaten away by a secret flame. Aeneas's high family name, all he has done, as he's repeatedly stated, cling to her mind. His face and words hold fast her breast, nor does care grant her limbs any peaceful rest. When after the new dawn was lighting up the earth by Apollo's lamp, having banished the moist shadows away from the sky, thence came restless Dido, turning to her sister, single-mindedly speaking. "Anna, sister, what dreams make me tremble awake all night? Who is this new house guest who's come to our home? Oh, how he bears himself with his mouth! How strong he is in chest and in arms! I do think and have cause to believe that he's born of the gods. For in the face of fear the mediocre must fall. But alas, what fates have driven him, what trying wars he's lived to tell! Were it not so firmly fixed and deeply set in my mind, my most certain, immovable choice, never to marry again, ever since my first love cheated me, deceiving me by death, and were I not already so weary of the couch and the torch, I might perhaps give way to this one fault. For Anna, I must confess, ever since the death of my miserable husband Sychaeus, with our household gods, ever marred by fraternal slaughter, this one man alone might move my lonely heart. I know too well the signs of an old flame. Let me lower the ambience a bit. I know too well, agnosko veteres vestigiae flammae, too well the signs of an ancient flame, but may the earth gape wide open and close up above me, or may the Almighty Father hurl me to the shadows with lightning, down to those pallid depths in the deepest dark of Erebus, before I'd ever violate you, O shame, or ever break your laws. For he who first had joined me to himself has stolen my love. May he keep it thus, and so be its guardian within his grave." Thus she spoke, and her breasts became a well of tears. Anna replies, "O sister, more dear to me than light itself, are you thus to spend all your youth in perpetual mourning, not knowing sweet children or the soft rewards of Venus? Do you really think the ashes or shades care for such things? Until this one man came along, there were no suitors who moved your lonely heart. No Libyan now, nor Tyrian before. You constantly scorned Iarbas, and all that the other African kings, a land rich in triumphs, had to offer you. Does it please you thus to fight such an agreeable suitor? Nor occur to your mind on whose lands you have settled? On one side of us lie the towns of the Gaetulians, a race unsurpassed in war, and the unbridled Numidians and the inhospitable Syrtians, and on the other side lies barren sand, stripped by drought and by Barcaean raiders. Need I remind you of the wars that simmer in Tyre, and of your brother's menacing plots? But I'm sure it was the work of the gods and of Juno that have held the Trojan galleys fast on their course to our shores. Oh, what a city, sister, what a kingdom you will see if you might make such a marriage. With Trojan armies beside us, so much greatness will lie in store for Punic glory. Only pray to the gods for their blessings, and once the sacred libations are made, indulge your Trojan house guests, weave lavish excuses for their delay, while frenzied winter storms out across seas and shatters the ships, while soaking wet Orion blows his tempest squalls beneath the untractable sky." These words of Anna fed the flames in Dido's spirit. Her hope burned away her doubt, and it loosened up her shame. First they went from shrine to shrine, imploring the favors of each of the gods. At every altar they slaughter all of the chosen sheep, as is their custom. And they offer them to Ceres the lawgiver, to Phoebus, to Father Bacchus, and above all to Juno, guardian of marriage. Ipsaptaram volcerrima Dido. Lovely Dido herself holds up the cup in her right hand. She pours out the offering midway between a milk-white heifer's horns. Then she studies the slit breasts of beasts, and she reads their throbbing entrails. But alas! What vain augury, what vows, what altars could possibly aid a woman so insane with love? This supple flame devours her innermost marrows. Deep within her breast, the silent wound survives. Unlucky Dido burns. Around the city she wanders in a frenzy, just as when a heedless doe is struck by an arrow from far off, which a shepherd, oblivious, lets fly into the Cretan woods, by chance implanting the wounding iron into her flesh as she panics and flees the forested slopes of Dicte, the deadly shaft fixed fast in her side. Just so does Dido now lead Aeneas around the ramparts, displaying her Sidonian wealth and her city ready at hand. She starts to speak, then she falters and stops mid-speech. Throughout the day, and as it glides away, she insanely seeks, and again prepares another banquet. Again she asks to hear of the toils of Troy, and again she hangs upon the narrator's lips. After, when all the guests were long since gone, the darkened moon in turn conceals its light, and the setting stars counsel sleep. Alone, she grieves in her vast vacant hall. She falls upon the couch he has left behind. Absent, she seems to see him and hear him in his absence, and she draws Ascanius, his counterfeit son, into her arms, as if his form might cheat her untellable love. Her towers rise up no more. The young men of Carthage no longer exercise their arms or build ports or machines of war. All of the work is idle. Broken off, the menacing, massive rampart walls, even the crane, that defier of the sky, they now lie neglected. When as soon as Jove's wife saw her dear Dido was in the grip of such a scourge, and that no honor could withstand this madness, then Saturn's daughter turned to Venus with these words, and thus spoke Juno. "How remarkable indeed! What splendid spoils you carry off, you and that boy of yours! How memorable and grand is this glory if one mortal woman be beaten by the guile of two gods! For I haven't been blind, and I know you fear our fortresses, that you are and always have been suspicious of the houses of high Carthage. But what end shall ever come of all of this hatred? Let us be done with our war. Let us make, instead, an everlasting peace and a plighted wedding. You have what you were bent on. Dido burns with love. This frenzy now is in her bones. So let us rule these people, you and I both, with equal auspices. Let Dido serve a Phrygian husband. Let her give herself, her Tyrians, and her pledged dowry into your right hand." But Venus easily read between the lips of Juno. She perceived her hidden motive. to shunt the kingdoms of Italy to Libyan shores. And so to Juno, Venus tactfully replied, "Who is so mad as to shun these terms you offer? Who would prefer to strive with you in war, if only fortune favor the course that you urge? But I am ruled by the fates, and I'm unsure if Jupiter would have the Trojan armies and the men of Tyre become one nation if he prefers such a mingling of peoples and the prescriptions of such treaties. But, as you are his wife, it is right for you to try his mind, to entreat him. So proceed where thou wilt, there I shall follow." Then Queen Juno replied, "Why, yes, that task shall be mine, but listen now, while in a few words I try to tell you how I mean to bring about this end. For when tomorrow's Titan first shows his rays of light, revealing the world, then Aeneas and unlucky Dido will plan to go hunt together in the forest. Then, while the horsemen hurry out to surround the glades of the fields with their nets, I shall suddenly pour down a black rain cloud, in which I've mixed hail, to awaken all of the heavens with my thundering. Their comrades will scatter upon the cover of thick night, but both Dido and the Trojan chief will reach shelter in the same cave. I shall be with them, and if I may rely on your goodwill, I shall unite the two in the most certain union, and seal her as Aeneas' own, and this shall be their honeymoon." Cytherea said nothing to oppose this plan. She granted just what Juno had wanted, smiling at its cunning. Meanwhile, Aurora rose. She departed the ocean, and when her brightness had filled the air, the select young men move out from the gates with their wide-meshed nets, their narrow snares, and broad-blade spears. And then the Massilian horsemen hurry out with their strong, keen-scented hounds. But meanwhile the chieftains of Carthage wait at Dido's threshold. She still lingers in her room. Her splendid stallion, adorned in gold and purple, proudly prances about, chomping at his foaming bit. When at last the queen appears among the mighty crowd. Upon her shoulders she wears a tunic of Sidon with an embroidered border. Her quiver is of gold. Her hair has knots and ties of gold, and a golden clasp holds fast her purple cloak. Her Trojan comrades and happy Ascanius advance behind her. Aeneas, handsome past all others himself, approaches now to join her, and he clinks his hunting spear to hers. Just as Apollo in the winter abandons Lycia and Xanthus streams to visit his maternal Delos, where he renews the dances with Cretans, Dryopians, and painted Agarussi, shouting advances upon the mountain ridges of high Cynthus, binding his flowing hair with gentle leaves and braiding its strands with intertwining gold, his arrows clattering on his shoulder. No less graceful is Aeneas as he proceeds, and equal beauty fills his splendid face. And when they'd reached the hills and pathless thickets, wild she-goats, dislodged from stony summits, run down the ridges, and from other slopes stags fling themselves across the open fields, amassing their dusty herds in flight, forsaking the hillsides. But the boy Ascanius delights in his steed as he rides through the valleys, passing now deer, now goats, and among the lazy herds he prays for a foaming boar, or that a golden lion might come down from the mountain. Meanwhile, confusion conquers the sky. Tremendous turmoil, and fast on its heels, rain comes suddenly mixed with hail, the scattered train of Tyrians, the young men of Troy, and Venus's Dardan grandson, all in alarm, seek shelter through the fields. The torrents meanwhile roar and tear down the slopes. By chance, Dido and the Trojan chieftain reach the same cave. Primal Earth and Juno, queen of marriage, together give the signal. Lightning bolts flash, the upper airs bear witness to their mating, and from the highest hilltops the nymphs are heard howling. But that day was to be her last, her first day of death and of ruin. For neither how things seem, nor how they are deemed, move Dido at all. She no longer thinks of this as furtive love. She thinks it marriage, and by this term she conceals her faults. Then rumor, swiftest of all evils, rumor runs straightway through Libya's mighty cities. Rumor, whose life is speed, whose goings give her force. Timid and small at first, she soon lifts up her body in the air. She stalks on the ground, her head is hidden up in the clouds. Provoked at the gods in anger, her mother Earth gave birth to her. Last to come, they say, as a sister to Coeus and Enceladus. Fast-footed and lithe of wing, she is a terrifying, enormous monster, with as many feathers as she has sleepless eyes beneath each feather, and amazingly as many sounding tongues and mouths. And she raises up as many ears. Between the earth and skies she flies by night, screeching across the darkness. She never rests her eyes with gentle sleep. By day she sits as a sentinel on some steep roof, or on high towers frightening vast cities. For she holds fast to falsehood and distortion, just as often as to messages of truth. Now rumor rejoiced, filling the ears of all with many tales. She sang of what was done and what was fiction, chanting that Aeneas, one born of Trojan blood, had come, and that lovely Dido had deigned to join him. That now, lustful and forgetful of their kingdoms, they take their long pleasures, fondling through the winter, the slaves of a squalid craving. Such reports as these, the filthy goddess rumor, scatters upon the lips of men. She then turns her course to King Iarbas, and his spirit is hot. His anger rages at her tidings. For Iarbas was the son of Hammon by a ravished nymph of Garamantia. In his broad realm he had built 100 temples, 100 handsome shrines to Jupiter. There he had consecrated sleepless fire, the everlasting watchman of the gods. His soil was rich with the blood of slaughtered herds, and with varied garlands flowering on the thresholds. Insane, incited by that most bitter rumor, he prayed long and hard, so they say, to Jupiter. He stood before the altars in the presence of gods, a suppliant with his upraised hands. All-powerful Jove, to whom the Moorish nation, feasting upon their figured couches, pour out thy name sacrifices, do you see these things? Are we only trembling for nothing when you cast your twisting thunder, Father? Those fires on the clouds that terrify our souls, are they but blind and aimless lightning that only stirs our empty mutterings? A woman, wandering within our borders, paid for the right to build a puny city. We gave her some land to till and some terms of tenure, but she has refused to marry me, and has now taken Aeneas as lord into her land. And so, this second Paris, with his crew of half-men, with his chin and his greasy hair, bounds up beneath a babe of Minonia, about to enjoy his prey. While we still bring offerings to what we believe to be your temples, ever yet cherishing your empty reputation. And as he prayed and shuddered and clutched at the altar stone, omnipotent Jupiter heard him, and turned his eyes upon the royal walls, upon the lovers who had forgotten their good name. He soon speaks to Mercury, commanding him thus. So this is Jupiter speaking. Be on your way, my son, call up the zephyrs, glide on your wings, and speak to the Dardan chieftain who now lingers at Tyre in Carthage, who pays not one jot of attention to the cities that the fates have assigned him. Mercury, carry across the speeding winds with these words I urge. His lovely mother did not promise such a son to us. She did not save him twice from Grecian arms for this, but to be master of Italy, of a land that teems with empire and seethes with war, to father a race from Teucer's high blood, to place all earth beneath his laws. But if the brightness of such deeds is not enough to kindle him, if he cannot attempt the task for his own fame, does he, a father, begrudge his son Ascanius the walls of Rome? What is he thinking? What hope can hold him here among his enemies, not caring for his own Ausonian sons or Lavinian fields? He must set sail, and that is all. That is the sum of my message. His words were ended. Mercury made ready to follow his great father's orders. First, he laces on his golden sandals, winged to bear him, swift as whirlwinds high across the land and the water. Then he takes up his wand, with which he calls pale spirits up from Orcus, and down to dreary Tartarus he sends others. He uses it both to give sleep and to recall it, and to unseal the eyes of those who have died. His trust in this wand, he spurs the winds and skims the troubled clouds, and now in flight he sights the summit and the high slopes of hardy Atlas, who props up heaven with his crest. Atlas, whose head is crowned with pines and battered by black clouds, his shoulders cloak is falling snow. And above the old man's chin the rivers rush, his bristling beard is stiff with ice. Here first Silene's god poised on his even wings and halted. Then he hurled himself headlong and seaward with his body, like a bird that over shores and reefs where fishes throng swoops low along the surface of the waters. Not unlike this, Silene's god appears between the earth and heaven as he flies, cleaving the sandy shores of Libya from the winds that sweep from Atlas, his mother's father. As soon as his winged feet had touched the outskirts, he sees Aeneas founding fortresses and fashioning new homes. And his sword was bejeweled with tawny jasper, and the cloak that draped his shoulders blazed with Tyrian purple, a gift that wealthy Dido wove for him. And she had also run golden thread along the trim. And Mercury assaults him thus with these words. Aeneas, are you now laying down the foundations of high Carthage? As a mere servant to a woman, building her splendid city here? Are you forgetful of your own kingdom, your own fate? For the very god of gods, whose power sways both earth and heaven, sends me down to you from high Olympus. He himself has asked me to bring these commands through the swift air. If the brightness of such deeds is not enough to kindle you, if you can not... what are you pondering or hoping while squandering your ease in Libyan lands? If the brightness of such deeds is not enough to kindle you, if you cannot attempt the task for your own fate, yet remember Ascanius growing up, all the hopes you hold for Iulus, your own heir, to whom is owed the realm of Italy and the lands of Rome. So did Silene's god speak out. He left the sight of mortals even just as he spoke, , vanishing into the thin air. This new vision astounded Aeneas and left him dumbstruck. His terror held all his hairs erect. His voice clung fast within his jaws. He yearns to flee from Carthage, to quit these pleasant lands, astonished by such warnings and the commands of gods. But what could he do? With what words dare he face the frenzied queen? What openings could he employ? His wits were split. They shift here and there. They race to different places, turning away from everything. But even thus, as he hesitates, he seems to decide the better plan. He calls Sergestus and Mnesteos and the strong Serestes. He bids them equip the fleet in silence, to muster their companions on the shore, to make ready all their arms, to conceal all of this action, while he himself, with gracious Dido, still unaware and not dreaming such a love could ever be broken, he would try out new approaches, seeking the tenderest and most tactful time for that speech, whatever dexterous way might suit his case. And all the men were glad for it. They eagerly carry out and await these commands of Aeneas. In case you're wondering, this is Haras de Pirque 2016, Reserve de Propiedad from Chile. It's a Malbec, I believe. Oh no, it's a blend. Excuse me. It's a red blend. It's 65 Cabernet Sauvignon, 25% Carmenere, which is the ancient Roman grape varietal, rediscovered by genetic work from rootstock they found in Chile, I think, and Argentina. So somehow some ancient old world grape stock got transplanted over there, and then history forgot about it before the phylloxera thing happened and killed all the grapes in the old world Europe in like the 70s. And so Carmenere, ancient Roman varietal, rediscovered in Chile, I think by the people from the UC Davis in the late 80s. Not going to be exactly right on that, don't quote me. 25% Carmenere, 10% Cab Franc. Great, good red blend. Recommend. That was a good break. Let's resume. But the queen, for who can deceive a lover, had since caught on to Aeneas's craft. She quickly sensed what was to come, however secure they had seemed. She now feared all things, and that same unholy rumor spreads her hectic tidings, that the boats were being armed and made ready for sailing. Her mind was helpless, inflamed. She rages frantically throughout her city, just like a bacchante, when every second year is startled by the shaking of the sacred emblems, the cry, "Oh, Bacchus!" throughout the city as the orgies urge her on, calling to her by night. Kithareon incites her with his clamor. Just so, and at last, does Dido assault Aeneas with her words. "Deceiver! Did you ever hope to hide so harsh a crime? To leave my land without a word? Can nothing hold you back? Neither your love, the hand you pledged, nor even the cruel death that now lies in store for Dido. Beneath the winter sky, you are preparing a fleet to rush away across the deep among the north winds. You who have no heart. What?" Yeah, great acting job, I know. "Even if you were not seeking out strange fields with unknown dwellings, even if your ancient Troy were still intact, would you still return there across such stormy seas? Do you flee me thus? By tears, by your right hand, my sorry self is left with nothing else. By wedding, the marriage we began, if I did anything deserving of you, or anything of mine was ever sweet to you, take pity on a fallen house. Put off your plans, I beg, if there is any place for prayers. All because of you, the tribes of Libya and the nomad princes despise me. Even my own Tyrians are hostile, and on account of you, my honor now is gone. Oh, shame, and that good name that once was mine, my only claim to reach the stars, my guest. To whom do you now consign this dying woman? For I must call you now guest, as this name is all I have left of one whom I once called husband. So why then do I live? Until Pygmalion, my brother, batters down my walls, until Iarbas, the Gaetulian, takes me his slave. Had I at least, before you leave, conceived a son in me, if there were but a tiny Aeneas playing by me in the hall, whose face, in spite of everything, might yet remind me of you, then indeed I should not seem so completely abandoned and beaten. Her words had ended. But Aeneas, forewarned by Jove, held still his eyes. He struggles to press his deep care within his chest. With halting words, he answers her at last. I shall never deny what you deserve, the kindnesses you could tell. I shall never regret recalling Elisa for as long as I remember my own self. As long as my breath is king of these limbs, I'll speak brief words that fit the case. For I had never hoped, do not imagine I did, to hide my flight. I am not furtive, nor have I held ever the wedding torches as your husband. I never entered into such agreements. And if fate has granted me to guide my life by my own auspices, and to unravel my troubles with unhampered will, then I would cherish first the town of Troy, the sweet remains of my own people, the tall rooftops of Priam that would still remain, and my own hand would replant a second Pergamos for the vanquished. But now Grinean Apollo's oracles would have me take great Italy. The Lycian prophecies order me to take Italy. There is my love, there is my homeland. If the fortresses of Carthage and this vision of a Libyan city can hold you, who are Phoenician, then why begrudge us Trojans for settling on Ausonian soil? It is right that we too seek out a foreign kingdom, for often as the night conceals the earth with dew and with shadow, often as the stars ascend afire, my own father Anchises' image appeared to me before dreams, where, warning and terrifying me, I see the wrong I've done to one so dear. My boy Ascanius, to whom I am cheating of Hesperia, the fields allotted by fate, even now the gods' own messenger sent down by Jove himself, I call as witness both our lives, has brought his orders through the swift airs. My own eyes have seen the god as he was entering our walls in broad daylight. My own ears have drunk his words. Stop your quarrel with me, woman. No longer set us both aflame. It is no free will of mine which leads me to Italy. And all the while, as Aeneas spoke, her eyes rolled at him in disdain. Her gaze shifted this way and that, silently scanning his body. Then, inflamed beyond reason, she denounces him thus. No goddess was ever your mother, phony Aeneas, nor was Dardanus any author of your race. that bristling Caucasus reared you on harsh rocky crags, and some Hyrcanian tigress gave you her teats to nurse. Why must I dissemble? Why hold myself in check? For yet even greater wrongs? For when did Aeneas ever groan when I was weeping? Did he once turn his eyes, or overcome, shed tears, or pity me, who was his lover? What shall I cry out first? What then shall follow? No longer does mighty Juno, or our father, the son of Saturn, watch this earth with righteous eyes. Nowhere is trust certain. He came as an outcast on our shore, wanting. I took him in and madly let him share in my kingdom. I saved his lost fleet and his companions from death. Alas, how I rage inflamed by the fates and furies, first the augur Apollo, then the Lycian oracles, and now the god's own messenger sent down by Jove himself, belaying his horrid orders through the air. This seems indeed to be the work of most high ones, a care that must disturb their calm. I won't hold you back, nor refute your words. Go then before the winds to Italy. Seek out your kingdom in the waves. I only hope, if there be pious powers still, that you'll drink your torment all the way to the Lys, all alone among sea rocks, and while drowning in your sorrow, you'll be shrieking my name. And, though absent, I shall hunt you down with blackened firebrands, and even when chilled death has divided my soul from my limbs, as a shade I shall be present everywhere. Depraved, you will then pay your penalties, and I shall hear of them, and all these reports will come to me below, in the depths of Hades. She broke off her speech in the middle, and, despondent, she shuns the light of the day. She deserts his eyes, she turns away, leaving Aeneas in fear and hesitation, still longing and prepared to say so much. As Dido's limbs collapse in exhaustion, her servants lift her up, and they carry her into the marble chamber, and they deposit her upon her couch. But pious Aeneas, although still longing to soften and soothe and turn aside her troubles with a few more sweet words, though groaning great and long, and shaken in his mind because of his care, nevertheless, he carries out the god's commands and returns to his fleet. At this, the Teucrians indeed fall to. They launch their tall ships all along the beach. They set the hulls, well smeared with pitch, afloat. And the crewmen, keen for flight, haul from the forest fresh boughs not even stripped of their leaves to serve as oars, and timbers still yet untrimmed. And as you perceived them streaming out from the entire city, just as when ants move to attack a giant stack of spelt to store in their homes through the winter, the black file reaching across the fields, hauling their plunder through the grass on narrow tracks, some strain against the grain with their shoulders, heaving it hard. Others keep watch on the whole column. They keep it orderly, and they chide the loiterers. The whole trail seethes with their work. What were your feelings, Dido, then? What were the sighs you groaned at that sight, when far and wide from your high citadel before your very eyes you saw the beaches boil and turmoil take to the waters? O voracious love, to what ends will you not drive the hearts of mortals? Again she must outcry. Again a suppliant, she must plead. She must bend her pride to love. and so not die in vain, with any avenue left untried. Anna! You see them swarm across the beaches. From every reach around they rush to sea. Their canvas calls to the breeze, and already the boisterous crewmen crown the sterns with garlands. But I was able to foresee this sorrow. Therefore I can endure it. Sister Anna, yet in wretchedness I must ask you for this one service. Treacherous Aeneas has respected you alone, confiding even his secret feelings to you, and you alone know all his soft approaches and moods. Go, my sister, plead with him. Take this message to my arrogant enemy. I never once trafficked with the Greeks at Aulis to root the Trojans out. I never sent a fleet to Pergamus, never disturbed his father's ashes or Anchises' shade. That now Aeneas should shut off my words from his harsh ears. Where is he hurrying? If he would only grant his wretched love one final gift, to wait for easier sailing and favorable winds. I no longer ask for those old ties of marriage which he betrayed, nor that he lose his kingdom, be deprived of lovely Latium. I only ask for empty time, for a rest and a truce for all of this frenzy, until fortune teaches me, deserted, how to grieve. I ask this of you. Pity your sister as a final kindness, and when he has granted it, then I shall repay my debt with full interest accrued by my own death. Thus Dido pleads, and her poor sister carries her lamentations and brings them back. But no lament can move Aeneas. His graciousness towards any plea is gone. Fate is opposed. The god makes deaf the hero's kind ears. Just as when, among the Alps, the north winds may strain against each other to root out with blasts, now on this side and that, a stout oak tree, whose wood is full of years. The roar is shattering, the trunk is shaken, the high branches scatter on the ground, but still it grips at the rocks. As steeply as it thrusts its crown into the air, so deep the roots reach down to Tartarus. No less than this, our hero is battered on this side and that by her assiduous words. Although he feels deep care in his mighty chest, yet his mind cannot be moved. His tears fall, useless. Then, maddened by the fates, unhappy Dido calls out at last for death. It tires her to see the curve of the sky, that she may not weaken in her plan to leave the light. While placing offerings on the altars with burning incense, she beholds, terrible to tell, their sacred liquid turn to black. The outpoured wine transforms to obscene blood. But no one learns of this, not even Anna. And more, inside her palace she had built a marble temple to her former husband, whom she held dearly and honored wonderfully. She wreathed that shrine with snow-white fleeces and holy bay leaves. And when the world was seized by night, Dido seemed to hear, alone above the rooftops, the voice and words of her dead husband, calling out to her, death is his song. Just as an owl often complains and draws its long, slow call into a wailing lament, many more prophecies of ancient seers now terrify her with their awful warnings. And in her dreams it is the fierce Aeneas himself who drives her insane. She finds herself alone, abandoned, wandering without companions on an endless journey, seeking out her people, her Tyrians, in a deserted land. Just as Pentheus, when he is seized by frenzy, beholds the files of Furies, and a double sun and double Thebes appear to him. Or as when Orestes, Agamemnon's son, driven across the stage, flees from his mother armed with torches and with black snakes. On the threshold, the dreadful goddesses of vengeance squat. When she had fully gripped this madness within her mind, and, beaten by her grief, had fully resolved to die, she then plotted with herself the means in the moment. Her face conceals her motive. On her brow she wears serenity. She then speaks again to Anna thus. My sister, wish me well, for I have found a way that will restore Aeneas to me, or else free me of my love for him. Nearby the bounds of ocean and the setting sun lies Ethiopia, the farthest of lands, and there Atlas, the incomparable, turns the heavens, studded with their glowing stars upon his shoulders, and I have been shown a priestess from that land, one of the tribe of the Massilians, who guards the shrine of the Hesperides, for it was she who fed the dragon and preserved the holy branches upon the tree, sprinkling moist honey and poppy seeds, bringing sleep. She promises to free, with chant and with spell, the minds of those she favors, but sends anguish into others. And she can stay the waters and the rivers, and turn the stars upon their ways. She moves the nightly shades, makes the earth quake underfoot, and you will see sends ash-tree roots down the mountains. Dear sister, I call on the gods as witness, and you as well, and your dear life, that I resort to this sorcery against my will, in secret, build up a pyre within the inner courtyard beneath the open air, and lay upon it the weapons of the hero. He, the traitor, has left them hanging in my wedding chamber. Take all of his apparel, and the bridal bed where I was undone. You must destroy all relics of that cursed man, for so would I, and so the priestess has commanded. This being said, she is silent, and her face is pale. But Anna cannot dream her sister hides a funeral behind these novel rites. Her mind is far from thinking of such a frenzy, and she fears nothing worse than what happened when Zacchaeus died. And so she does as she's told. But when beneath the open sky inside the central court the pyre rises huge and high, with logs of pine and with planks of cypress, then the queen, not ignorant of what is coming, wreaths the place with garlands, crowning it with greenery of death. And on the couch above she places the clothes that Aeneas wore, the sword he left behind, then his effigy. Before the circling altars, the enchantress, her hair disheveled, stands as she invokes aloud some 300 gods, especially Chaos, and Erebus, and Hecate, the triple-formed Diana, the three-faced virgin. And she'd also sprinkled waters that would counterfeit the fountain of Avernus. She gathered herbs cut down by brazen sickles beneath the moonlight, juicy with the venom of black milk. She also found a love charm torn from the forehead of a newborn foal before his mother could take it. Dido herself, with salt cake in her holy hands, with her girdle unfastened, and with one foot free of her sandals, close by the altars, about to die, She now calls upon the gods and the stars who know the fates as witness, and she prays to any power there may be who is both just and watchful, who cares for those who love without redress. It is night. Across the earth, tired bodies were tasting tranquil sleep. The woods and the savage waters rest. The stars had reached the midpoint of their gliding, when all the fields are still, and animals and colored birds near and far that find their home beside the limpid lakes or haunt the countryside in bristling thickets. All things sleep in the silent night, but not the sorrowing Phoenician. She cannot submit to sleep. She can't admit dark night into her eyes or breast. Her cares increase. Again, love rises and surges within her. She wavers within a great tide of rage. She will not let things rest, but carries on, yet still revolves these thoughts within her chest. What can I do? Shall I, whom he has mocked, go back to my old suitors, begging, seeking a wedding with Numidians whom I already scorned as bridegrooms? Or should I sail away on Trojan shores to suffer there even their harshest orders? Should I do so because the Trojans once received my aid, and gratitude for such service is remembered by the mindful? But even if I will, would they welcome someone so hated to their haughty ships? For, lost one, do you not yet know nor feel the treason of Laomedon's race? What then? Shall I accompany alone these exultant sailors in their flight? Or call on my Tyrians, on all my troops, to rush upon them? How can I urge those I once dragged from Sidon? How can I now force them back upon the sea, and to have them spread their canvas to the winds? No. Die as you deserve, and set aside your sorrow by the sword. My sister, you, won over by my tears, you were the first to weigh me down with evils in my frenzy, the first to drive me toward my mortal enemy. And why was it not given to me to lead a guiltless life, never knowing marriage, like a wild beast, never to have touched such toils? I have not held fast the faith I swore before the ashes of my Sychaeus. Thus was her lament. Aeneas, on the high stern now, was set to leave. He first tasted sleep. All things were made ready, and in his sleep a vision of the god returned to him with that same countenance, resembling Mercury in everything, his voice and coloring and yellow hair, and all his handsome body, a young man's, seemed to bring a warning once again. As a side note, I think Mercury is the same character as the angel Gabriel in the biblical mythologies. Just a thought of mine. I think they're the same thing. Okay, so Mercury in Aeneas's dream is speaking to him again. You, goddess-born, how can you lie asleep at such a crisis? Madman, can't you see the threats around you? Can't you hear the breath of the kind west winds? While she conjures injuries and awful crimes, she means to die. She stirs the shifting surge of restless anger. Why not flee this land headlong while there is still time? You soon will see the waters churned by wreckage, ferocious torches ablaze, and beaches set aflame. If morning finds you still lingering on this coast, be on your way. Enough delay. An ever uncertain and inconstant thing is a woman. Check that translation. I dare you. This being said, he became one with the Black Knight. This sudden apparition terrifies Aeneas anew. He tears his body from sleep. He stirs up his crewmen. "Quick, awake! Now, to the benches, comrades! Now, unfurl the sails with speed. Down from the upper air, a god was sent to urge us on again, to rush our flight, to slice our twisted cables. O Holy One among the gods, we follow your way. Whoever you may be, again, rejoicing, we shall do as you command. Be present. Help us with your kindness. Bring your gracious constellations to the heavens." He spoke, and from his scabbard he grabs his gilded sword, and with the blade drawn he strikes at the ropes. And all his men are just as eager. They hurry to leave the shore. The ships envelop the sea. They strain to churn the foam and sweep the waters. But by then, preeminent dawn had left Tithonus's saffron bed, scattering new light upon the earth, when as soon as the queen from her lookout on the tower could see the morning light and the fleet move out with level sails. The shores and the harbors now abandoned without oarsmen. She beats her fists against her lovely breast 3 times, and then 4, and she tears at her golden hair, and she cried, "Oh, Jupiter, you let him go, a stranger who mocked our kingdom. Will my men not ready their weapons, hunt him down, pour from my city, and rip the galleys from their moorings? Quick, bring torches, spread your sails, ply your oars. But what am I saying? Where am I? What madness has turned awry what I meant to do? Poor Dido, does his foulness move you now? It should have then, when you gave him your scepter. This is the right hand, this the pledge of one who carries with him, so they say, the household gods of his land, who bore upon his shoulders his father Anchises, weak with so many years. And could I not have dragged his body off, and scattered him piecemeal upon the waters, limb by limb, or butchered all his companions, even served up Ascanius as a dish upon his father's banquet table? True enough, and then the battle might have ended differently. That does not matter, for as I'm about to die, need I fear any more? I should have carried my torches to his camp and filled his decks with fire, destroying the son, the father, their whole race, and then to have thrown myself upon them. You, sun, like the sun god, with your flames, you who see all that is done on earth, and you, Juno, interpreter and witness of my sorrow, you, Hecate, invoked by shrieks in the night at every city's crossroads, and you, Furies, at the gods that guard dying Elisa. Hear these words of mine, and turn your power towards my pain. As I deserve, take up my prayers. If it must be that he, a traitor, is to touch his harbor, to float to his coasts, and if the fates of Jove demand his end is fixed, yet let him suffer wars and struggles with audacious nations. And then, when banished from his borders and torn from the embrace of Iulus, let him beg and watch his people's shameful slaughter. Not even when he has bent low before an unjust peace may he enjoy his kingdom. The light he has wished for, let him fall before his time, unburied in the sand. These things I plead. With these final words I pour out my blood. Then, Tyrians, hunt down with hate all of his sons and their race to come. Send this as an offering unto my ashes. Do not let love or treaty ever tie our peoples. May an avenger rise up from my bones, one who will track the Dardan settlers with firebrand and sword, now and in the future, and at any time opportunities present themselves. I call your shores to war against their shores, your waves against their waves, your arms against their arms. Let them and their sons learn what is war. All of this being said, she ran her mind to every side, seeking ways with which to slice as quickly as she could the hated light. And then, with these brief words, she turned to Barsi, Zacchaeus' nurse, for Dido's own nurse was black ashes in Phoenicia, her old homeland. Dear nurse, call here to me my sister Anna. Tell her to be quick and to first bathe her body with river water, and that she bring cattle and all that is appointed for atonement. So must my sister come, while you yourself bind up your temples with a pious brand. I mean to offer unto Stygian Jove the sacrifices that, as are ordained, I have made ready and already begun, to put an end to my disquiet, and to commit to flames the pyre of the Trojan chieftain. So Dido spoke, and Barsi hurried off, moving with an old woman's eagerness. But then Dido, desperate and beside herself with awful undertakings, her eyes bloodshot and rolling, her quivering cheeks both flecked with stains and pale with coming death. Now she bursts across the inner courtyards of her palace. In madness she mounts that high pyre. She unsheathes the Dardan sword, a gift not sought for such an end. And when she caught sight of the Trojan's clothes and her familiar bed, she checked her thoughts, and tears a little. She lays upon the couch, and she speaks her final words. O relics, dear to me while fate and gods allowed, receive my spirit, free me from these cares, for I have lived and journeyed through the course assigned by fate, and now my shade will pass, illustrious, beneath the earth. I have built a handsome city. I have seen my walls rise up. I have avenged a husband, won satisfaction from a hostile brother. Oh, fortunate, too fortunate, if only the ships of Troy had never touched our coasts. And as she spoke and she shuddered, she pressed her face into the couch. I shall die unavenged, but I shall die, she says. Thus, I gladly go below to the shades. May the savage Dardan drink with his own eyes this fire from the deep, and take away with him the omen of my end. Un moment. Proszę bardzo. Dziękuję. Then her words were finally finished. Her companions saw her, having fallen on the sword, the blade foaming with her fresh blood, her hands blood-stained. Now clamor rises to the high rooftops. Now rumor riots freely throughout the startled city. The laments, the sobbing and shrieking of women resound through the houses. The heavens echo the mighty wailings, just as if an enemy were entering the gates, with all of Carthage and ancient Tyre in ruin. Angry flames roll through the homes of men and of gods. Anna soon heard the news. Appalled and breathless, she runs anxiously through the crowd, her nails wounding her face, her arms, her breasts. She calls to the dying Dido by name. Was it then all for this, my sister? Did you plan this fraud for me? Was this the meaning waiting for me when the pyre, the flames, the altar were prepared? What shall I now, deserted, lament? You scorned your sister's company in death. You should have called me to the fate you met. That same sword, the same hour should have taken the two of us away. Did my own hands help build this pyre? Did my own voice call upon our father's gods, only to find me here, heartless, far away when you lay dying? You have destroyed yourself and me, my sister, the people and the elders of your Sidon, and all your city. Let me bathe your wounds in water. If any final breath still lingers, may my lips catch it up. This being said, she climbed the high steps. She then clasped her half-dead sister to her breast, and moaning, embraced her, soaking up the black blood with her dress. Trying to lift her heavy eyes, the queen falls back again. She seems to breathe. The deep wound in her chest is loud and hoarse. 3 times she tries to raise herself up, and she strains, propping on an elbow, and 3 times she falls back on the couch. 3 times, with wandering eyes, she tried to find high heaven's light. And when she found it, she exhaled and expired. But then, omnipotent Juno pitied her long sorrow and her wretched demise, and from high Olympus sent Iris down to free the struggling spirit from her entwining limbs. For as she died a death that was not merited or fated, but miserable and before her time, and spurred by sudden frenzy, Prosperina had not yet cut a golden lock from her crown, nor yet assigned her life to Stygian Orcus. On saffron wings, dew-glittering Iris glides along the sky, drawing 1,000 shifting colors across the facing sun. She halted above the head of Dido. So commanded, I take this lock as offering to the gods. I free you from your body. So she speaks and cuts the lock with her right hand. At once the warmth was gone. Dido's spirit passed on to the winds. This has been my attempt at a translation for Book 4 of Virgil's Aeneid. Thank you for watching. Gratias pro spectantibus. I do intend to add captions in Latin with the original text to this video, so if I haven't done that yet, pester me to do it in the comments, and I'll do it in a week or so. Thank you. Be well, stay discerning in these times. Gratias pro spectantibus. Valete, amici.